Hey, it's James Mulvaney here. In this video, I want to teach you 3 steps to get your podcast shit together. Now, what do I mean by this? When you first start a podcast, there's lots and lots of stuff to consider. You know, booking guests, how to schedule them, production time, how you're editing, and if you're trying to produce a whole series, and all of this can become quite overwhelming. And what I wanted to do is show you how we handle this on a commercial scale to ensure that everything gets done in a very organized and timely fashion. So here are my 3 top tips for getting your podcast shit together. Let's go for it.
So step 1 is use a project management tool. We recommend using something like Trello.com. It can be any project management tool that you feel comfortable with. Personally, I like Kanban just because of its simplicity. But rather than having a sort of simple structure like this, you probably want something a bit more advanced. But Kanban is effectively, you can even do it using a whiteboard or a blank wall. You have columns, you have cards within that column, and you move the cards down as they go on. So to begin with, you might have a list of prospects or potential guests that you want to get on board. Once you've booked one of those guests and you know that they've got a confirmed date for recording, you might move it into scheduled, and then further down you might move it into recorded, ready for editing. I'll go through the exact list later on in the presentation. The other thing I really like about systems like Trello is they are just good for storing down ideas. You might have an idea for a specific podcast episode, a topic you want to talk about, and you need to make sure you're writing this stuff down, because it's very easy to have that aha moment. Sometimes when you're not necessarily sat at your computer, or you might not be at the office, but you have a great idea for a topic you want to discuss, or you have a great idea for a certain type of guest you want to go after, or you might even meet someone and say, would you like to be on my show? Very easy to then lose track of these things. So using Trello allows you to just get everything down, whether you've got an ideas column or a potential guest or whatever it is you might be, get stuff down, and then you can start kind of fleshing it out later on and sort of start, coming up with more of a plan for a specific episode. But, they also allow great collaboration as well, which is why we like Trello. You can have everyone on your team who's fully aware of where episodes are in the process, and, if they've got stuff that they want to contribute towards the podcast, or if they think that there's something we need to discuss, you can use it to collaborate. So first of all, you need to be using a project management tool. There's no point of just using email or just relying on your own head to remember everything, because it just doesn't work. So secondly, you need to send everyone involved the information that they need. So when I say this, I believe to get the best out of someone, you really need to give them time to prepare. So sending out your questions to your guests before you actually go ahead and record with them gives them time to collect their thoughts, come up with some answers that would be perhaps difficult to come up with on the spot, and really give their utmost for your podcast episode, which will mean you get a better quality of recording, and ultimately, you get a more interesting discussion. Now, it's funny because the way I handle this is I'm not always prepared in terms of I can't send everyone every single question I'm going to ask, because some of the things you come up with on the spot, sure, but you kind of can set either a template of types of questions you may ask so that they can kind of have some answers ready to go, or even tailor the questions for the guest. Really depends on your style. I kind of like to do a little bit of both. Quite often what I'll do is I will sit down with the guest again before the interview, 20 minutes before the recording, just to think about what they're going to say. But I think having that preparation is really, really important for both yourself and your guests, and also helps put their mind at rest, because a lot of people I've spoken to, they might be great business leaders, they might have fantastic public speaking sort of credentials, but when you get them in a studio and they're sat in front of a microphone, it kind of just can be a little bit out of their comfort zone. So you're doing yourself and your guest a huge favour by being prepared. What else can you include in this document? As I say, it doesn't have to just be questions. You might want to have the location of the recording. So for example, generally I will record in our studio here in Manchester, which is where I live, or I quite often will be down in London. Or I might be at one of our other studios, perhaps Amsterdam or New York. Have the list of addresses of the studios just in this document. You don't have to change it then based on the guest. They'll immediately know whether to go. How about your contact information? If they can't find the studio, or they can't find your office, or whatever it is you might be recording at, make sure you've got your contact information, maybe your cell phone number, your email, all there and ready so they can easily access it if they need to. I've seen people even go as far as sending out kits to guests before, just to prepare them, sending out a USB microphone if they don't have a decent mic. Again, it depends on your budget. This can also be a great business development tool if you want to actually go and send people a cool gift. Also to make sure you get the best quality of recording. You might need to give your guests specific instructions. So what I tend to do is if I'm recording remotely, e.g. the guest isn't sat there in front of me in the same room in a good quality studio, perhaps they're recording from home and we're recording via like a Skype link or a video chat or Hangouts or Zoom or whatever tool you use. Still, if you're recording and relying just on that, it doesn't always sound the best. You can have interference in the line. Sometimes it's just, the HD isn't there, if you know what I mean. So to get the best possible recording, I will ask the person to record the microphone that they are using on their end, using maybe Audacity or, even QuickTime on a Mac will record the system audio. So you can use a variety of tools. Particularly if your guests perhaps aren't very technical, they're not tech savvy, you may need to walk them through this process of how to record audio. You might not need to even send them perhaps like a YouTube tutorial or something like that. But the more information you can include in this document, if you can send it to them well in advance, it gives the guest a chance to prepare. So this is my second strategy for success here. So first of all, be organized, use a project management tool. Secondly, send guests everything they need. Okay, step number 3 to get your podcast shit together in 2020 is to simply build a really good team and set up processes for them. If you want your podcast to be the best it can, you can't always do it alone, unless you're hugely talented or you've got lots of time. I don't recommend it. I have both got the talents to do all this stuff, and I have a reasonable amount of time, probably because I've got a decent team behind me, but I still choose not to do all of this. I still prefer to have my audio editor edit the audio, have my video guys create the video assets, and have my content team work on things like, copywriting, article creation, social media scheduling, and all that sort of stuff. Now, I'm in a lucky position. I'm not saying, as I say, you have to have a huge team around you. I so happen to, because we do this stuff for lots of clients each and every day. However, you can go out and find freelancers on the internet who will do this stuff pretty cheaply, quite often offshore. So, for example, you go out and find someone who can do transcription. You can rely on the AI transcription, basically converting audio to text. It's not always perfect, so you'll need someone to go in and edit it. But, as I say, there's not generally enough time in the day to do all of this alone by yourself. And if you're struggling to, recruit the right team for your podcast, please come and speak to us. As I say, we can take care of this entire process here at podcast.co. So just drop an email to hello@podcast.co and someone will get back to you with more information. But the point of this video isn't to sell you on our services. As I say, we can help you with all of that. But really, the point of this video is to explain how we do this, on a commercial scale for lots and lots of clients, and also get really good quality results every time. So you need to make sure you have processes in place. How is your podcast going to flow? And this goes back to point number 1 about being organized, using project management. You'll see a list of things in front of you. So it kind of goes from sort of prospecting or finding relevant guests, outreach. You might want someone to be sending out emails, contacting people, through to, scheduling booking time in studios. Again, we've got studios here in Manchester, in New York, Amsterdam, etc. that we use. But organizing all this stuff and booking time in and making sure you're super organized about everything is really important to get the best results. You don't want to be messing guests around. You don't want to be messing your own diary up, your own schedule up. So make sure you're organised there. And then through to things like editing, taking care of the actual edit, making sure it sounds as sweet as it can, creating assets around it, writing articles, transcription, social media quotes. All of this stuff is required to launch a successful podcast. And if you're not doing all of this stuff, you're not going to get the best results that you possibly can. It's as simple as that. You can't just record a half an hour podcast, upload it to iTunes and Spotify and hope for the best, because it doesn't quite work like that just yet anyway. You need to make sure you've got a strategy in place to promote and drive as much traffic as you can to get the best results from what you're recording. You're spreading it as far as you can, and overall, you're going to win at marketing there. And especially if you're using podcasting as a tool to drive sales to your business or build better bonds with your customers or your staff or whatever it might be, making sure all of this is taken care of is crucial. So, if you had to just choose one thing, I'd basically say go and find a good audio editor, someone who can take the editing process away from you. Secondly, maybe try and find someone who can handle the marketing assets. But, it's totally up to you how you can handle that, or you can go to a company like podcast.co and we can do all of this for you. So, finally, just to make sure your podcast is on point, the main point to address here is go out and find people who are also passionate about delivering the same kind of results. There are so many people now who are professionals in the area of podcasting that there weren't, say, 5 years ago, whether that be producers audio editors, videographers, anyone who really can handle that process. Most people have got some kind of exposure now to how to create a podcast, what a podcast is, and how to get the best results from it. So, go out there, have some conversations and build your ideal team. So that's it. Just to recap then, firstly, you need to make sure you're using a really good project management tool, something like Trello, I recommend. Secondly, make sure you send your guests all the information that they need to get the best result from them, and as much in advance as you possibly can. And finally, build a really strong team and set up some good processes for them to make sure that the results are consistent and awesome.
All right, so there you have it. Those are my 3 top tips to get your podcast shit together. Hopefully you find that useful. If you want to get further videos from me like this, please remember to hit that like button, also subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can be the first to get lots of useful information just like this one today. And also it encourages me to create more content for you guys and keep helping you out, which I really enjoy doing. So let me know in the comments below, what are your top tips in being organized, and what do you do to make sure that your podcast runs smoothly like a finely oiled machine? Comment below and let me know. Hey, before you go anywhere, I have a quick question for you. Do you have a podcast? And if you do you want to book more interesting, high-profile guests on your show? Well, if you answered yes to either of these questions, I'd love to invite you to come and join our community over at matchmaker.fm. Matchmaker is a service that connects awesome podcasts just like yours with incredible and high-profile guests that make for really interesting conversations. It's really straightforward to get started and completely free to sign up. Just connect using your LinkedIn, Facebook or Google account, and then you can begin connecting with guests based on their area of expertise, location, and much more. If you haven't checked it out already, go to matchmaker.fm, get started. It's just like Tinder, but for podcasters.